welcome back to another amazing live stream. Today we are going to design something super duper awesome. Today we're going to design a complete hospitality app using Figma and a lot of cool techniques. Let's just get started. Let's just jump into the demo that we have for today. This is what we're going to be making today. It is a very simple and yet nice looking app. It just works on so many levels using different fonts that are just completely out of the general spectrum of fonts that you see every single day. Let's just get started. So the first thing that we have right off the bat here is this awesome tagline. The font combinations here are just insane, and then we have this awesome slider, and then your gallery reverses. I've said this a bunch of times all across this channel and other places. Once your UI gets boring, once your UI uses a certain color for some amount of time and things get boring or monotonous, it's always wise to switch the colors that you're using for backgrounds, foregrounds and everything else, just so things are a little bit interesting, just so there's something happening, just so the user is still stimulated enough to be on the site. Again, this is a very modern, very classy slider with all of the trends, everything that's going on in the recent times, in the times of modern UI design, UI3 and everything else. This is our split screen section now. It can expand to accommodate split screen scrolling half of the page, scrolling both the sides of the page at a different pace, or not scrolling any one or both sides at all. And it also functions as the section for all the features. And next we have the section of testimonials, what the guests say. This is a really nice and simple place to leave a feedback, leave the testimonials of whoever has used the products, whoever has used the platform. Again, super duper nice, but signature design. Color scheme for this one is going to be monochromatic, which means we're going to only use one single color other than black, white, and so we're going to be using red for this one. The other thing that we're doing again is a beautiful reach out form, and one of the concepts that this works on as well is when things get boring with a white background for quite some time, you switch things up, change it to a black background, and it just keeps your mind stimulated enough to just be on this page. Super duper nice. This is my favorite section by far. It is the footer and the description of everything that's going on here. It's just so nice because it just bases itself on a modern layout, divides the page in on both the sides with an equal spacing, and then you have these 6 different images depicting all of these features that you want to show. Again, this is completely awesome, and I love the way it looks. And now and the last part that we're talking about is our footer. Again, simple, modern, useful, 100% something I'd make in a real project. Let's just go back to the top and get started. Alright, so the very first thing you're going to do is if you don't yet have Figma installed, you're going to get that installed. You're just going to go to figma.com/downloads, and then you're going to install Figma for desktop, whether it is on macOS or Windows. And the next thing we're going to do after this is start a new design file. If you don't yet have a new design file, if you don't yet know how to make one, you're just going to go to the page at the front of the screen and create a new design file. And this is going to create a completely new design file for you. I'm just going to create a new design file now, and we can get started on our UI design. While this is loading up, we have to think about all of the images that we're going to use. Every single image that we're using here has been taken from the Discord group, which is in the live chat and in the description. Do not forget to join because it is the best UI design community on the internet by far. Let's just jump into our design for today. Before I get started, I want to talk a little bit about the fonts that we have for today, because this isn't uncommon combination, and it just looks really, really nice. This sort of looks like a Netflix poster. I mean, it could have, and yet it has all of the concepts that a good website should, and it's just web design on so many levels. All right, so the font families that we're using for today are both a little bit uncommon, both that I don't use very often on the channel or in real life. The first font that we're using here is Notable, and the second font that we're using here is Veera Sans. And believe it or not, Notable is a very wide font, Veera Sans is a thin font, and yet together they make perfect piece. So none of the fonts used on this design, by the way, are of the middle kerning thickness, if you want to call it that, but both of them look quite awesome because you're using something that's very, very thick and then something that's very, very flat, and when you combine them together you actually get a result that's pretty nice looking. All right, so the next thing that we're going to make sure is we're going to get our title in, and then we're going to get our navigation bar started. Our navigation bar only has 3 elements over here, so we just have to take care of 3 different boxes internally. Let's just create a new frame. If you don't know how to create a new frame, just go down to the bottom, click on the frame button, and then go over here and click on MacBook Air, and then that's it. The next thing we're going to take care of is getting our navigation bar done. We're going to create a different frame with the same amount of width as our previous frame, but the height changes considerably, and this can now go to 70. And now we're going to have all of our different elements be in here. So the first thing we're doing is the Crimson Haven. Let's just add a text box to say the Crimson Haven. Again, this is a hotel website, and it does have a lot of the hospitality elements, the core elements that would invite you, starting with the red that we have right off the bat. Very, very attractive, very, very bringing you into the place, and then it just expands into this super comfortable layout that you would want to genuinely see up closer, see, visit in real life, and that helps your brand. Alright, so now we're going to change this font to Notable, which is the font that we're going to be using for this UI. Let's add it here, and also we're going to increase the font size just so everything looks nice and pretty. Again, one of the things that I have to add here is we need to have one single color that highlights the important words, and I feel like that's a running theme here. You have one single red word and it highlights whatever your headline is, and it works so well in breaking the monotony and getting your mind to look somewhere, and it's just perfect for a UI design like this, which is inviting if not much else. The font, the color that we're using today is red. The shade is FF1717. Oops, FF1717. I cannot type while I'm streaming. This is incredible. Alright, so now we have a simple title. The font here is Notable, and we've highlighted one single word with red. The next part of this navigation bar is getting our navigation options in. So we're going to design a couple of options using the font Veera Sans. Welcome to the show, our story, shop the experience. Simplest thing in the whole world. Welcome to the... Let's do hotel, because this is a hotel. Change this to Veera Sans. Reduce the font size. Let's do 15. 15 looks nice. And our story and shop the experience. Alright, so now we have all of these icons in. One of the first things we need to make sure of is we group all of these into an auto layout, because when everything is grouped into an auto layout, it's just easier to work with. We're going to group this together and then add an auto layout. Everything is now perfectly aligned. You can also adjust the spacing in between each of these, and that gives you this really nice place of being able to position it wherever you want as a single element. And you always need to make sure you are working with the red lines in Figma, not against them, because they are there for the alignment of your UI. Alright, the next thing we're going to take care of is our main call to action button. The text here is connect with us. The font size is almost the same as these links, so we're just going to get one of these, but make sure your link is situated outside of your frame, because if it isn't, it's probably not going to help you much with the spacing. The text is going to say connect with us. You know what, since this is a hotel, I can do book now. Alright, the next thing we're going to take care of is adding a complete button. So we're going to right click, frame the selection. This is the simplest way of creating a button, by the way, and then add a layout. And then we're going to add a spacing on the right and left, and then top and bottom, and then we're going to add a stroke, since this doesn't really have a fill of its own. And then you can add a border radius just to round things off, make it look nice and easy. This looks like a decent call to action button, something you could actually use. The border radius can always change, but at the end of the day, this is like the simplest button you can have. Alright, so we've got a couple of questions in. You know I love to answer your questions. Let's hear it. Payal asks, hi Veera, what's the difference between a website and a web app, and do we need to design it differently than a website? I know that this has been a confusing topic for many people out there. It was for me as well. Great question, by the way. Websites and web apps are two different things. They are made using the same technologies, and yet they are different in the functionality they provide. A website will only provide you with some content, maybe give you a form. So the site we're making today is, and then Payal asks if there are any special UI requirements for the same. Alright, so a website will only provide you with some details of what's going on, and then a web app will provide you some special functions that you wouldn't usually get in a website. A website is just super duper simple, super duper static. Even if it is dynamic, it's just sitting there and not doing a lot of things. You will find that web apps are far more dynamic, are doing far more complex things in terms of the things they can process. If you have a website using obviously HTML, CSS, JavaScript, the same technologies that make websites, but they're giving you games to play, e-learning going on, something that is not a usual function of your HTML, CSS, JavaScript programming languages, then you have a web app. So the primary difference between a website and an app is an app provides specified functionality. Website is just for general knowledge. And so when you get some of the functionality from applications and bundle it together using the same technologies with which you make a website, you have now this hybrid thing that comes out of it, where it is made using the components of a website. It is made using the same technologies a website would be made, and yet a lot of its functionalities are now hybrid. Anything that goes on outside of a form, so if you have anything dynamic going on outside of creating a form, you can now call it a web app. Special UI requirements, I don't believe there are any, because you don't have any special UI requirements for web apps or websites, because it is exactly the same technology that goes into making a website, which is now going into making a web app. It does not make a difference what UI requirements you need, what code requirements you need. They are absolutely the same. The major difference will always be what functionality it can provide. And one of the reasons today's UI is a web app is because we have a layout, we have something that looks nothing short of a Netflix poster, and I'm really proud of that. And yet it has all of these elements of a website. It isn't the complete publishable thing, but if you take this video into account, watch the complete version of it, and then try to expand on it, you will end up with some web app which is beyond everything that is out there for most competition who is putting out a portfolio. So I feel like this is a really good place to start with your own web app, and it's the perfect starter kit, which is why we're starting from this. And as this progresses, you will see how today's UI is very, very different from most of the websites that you see. So this is different level stuff, and you could completely expand this to an amazing web app. And so this is why this is a web app and not a website. All right, now we're going to go back to our title, get our big title in. And I feel like this is super duper important, especially if you're making a modern website, because oversized is the trend now. It used to look oversized, and at this point I feel like it's the main trend going on. Step into the spotlight. It's awesome how this UI comes together super duper quickly. Alright, Pyle asks, any daily examples of a live site that's a web app? Because I really get confused to understand if it's just a website or a web app. Are e-commerce sites web apps? I feel like many times in common usage, developers and designers get confused about this a lot. So it isn't really a big issue if you do get confused in the first place. I feel like you have, I feel like we have all of these cool, the easiest example I can give you at this point is you have these e-learning websites which provide you with games. So I don't know if you've seen a couple of math game sites, and that's the perfect example of a web app in my head. Because if you think of a website, you don't generally think there's going to be an quiz, something special going on, some sort of a game going on over here. Even the game engines that we have, which are based in websites, are primary examples of web apps. Because if you think of a website and then you think it's an e-commerce website, or if you think of a website and it's just one hotel description website, it still remains a website. But when you add all of these functionalities that would not generally seem, if you just think about a website, if I just give you the word website, you might not generally think there is going to be a playable game. But when you have that playable game, it automatically becomes a web app. So think of it like that. If you think of a website and the first thing that pops into your head, and this is just common sense general definition stuff, if that's something that you would usually think of, a feature that you would think of a website for it to have. So for example, if I think of a site which is detailing what hotels are present in your area, you're only going to get a contact me form or the phone number of the people who are maybe at the other end of the desk, and email IDs and whatnot. That's just common functionality for websites. You would think of those things to be in a website, but you wouldn't generally think of a game to be on a website. So when you have a game going on there, it's a web app. I feel like the Google Doodle site, if you go to google.com and you click on I'm feeling lucky, the Google Doodle site that pops up does have a lot of integrated games, and that's like a good example of a web app because the functionalities inside of it have expanded. If you go to the Halloween doodles for googledoodle.com, you get these wonderful, even multiplayer games sometimes, which you wouldn't generally have in a plain website. And in a crevice of the website, in one of the Halloween pages, you have so much internal wiring going on that you can't help but call it a web app. Pyle says, understood, now it's making sense, thanks a lot. You are very, very welcome. Thank you for those kind words. Now we're going to change the text to say notable. Alright, and we're going to now make this font extremely large. Oversized is absolutely the trend right now, and I feel like now that 2025 is just coming, we need to be very, very careful of the trends that are going on and mindful of them, because things are changing so quickly and we have to change with them. Alright, step into the spotlight. The font size that we're using is 96 right now. You could take it up to 102 and it should be fine. The next thing we're taking care of is highlighting one single word. Highlighting words is so powerful, and if you've seen the latest video we just did on the 5 techniques of great UI design, you will know that highlighting can make the difference between a great site and an okay site. Alright, now we're going to add a description. Let's just style this first and then we can add our text at our own pace. We're going to change the font to Veera Sans. Alright, and also change the color of this to gray, because it's easier to look at and doesn't give you a lot of cognitive load, especially if the main font that you're using is this bold, this black. If everything here was black purely instead of gray, it would be a lot of different things happening all at once, and it would just make everything super duper difficult to concentrate on. Speaking of things that are difficult to concentrate on, you can, at this point, I feel like using pure black is a mistake because it's very easy to get lost in the cognitive load here. So we're just going to go to the black and maybe take it down to a lighter shade, something that looks good while actually being useful. And I'm just going to get the shade that I've been using all of this time. It is 1C1917, and this is the perfect shade of black, especially if you're mixing things up. Let's just go right here and change the shade of black to say 1C1917. This is the black that we're using for today, and you can go with any shade of gray you like. Let's do 39, 39, 39. This seems a little too dark. I'm just going to stay with 646464, and now I'm just going to get my description text. I'm just going to copy the text that's over here. You can pause the video to type it out, obviously. We're going to paste it with the same style and then reduce the font size to, let's do 24. 24 should be fine. All right. If you guys have any questions related to UI UX design, I am always more than happy to answer. Let's change this to 22, and now we're going to get started with our main call to action button. This is just a reverse black to white, white to black version of this button, and the font size has been increased a little bit just because this is in the center of the screen, so we're going to accommodate for that. Copy this, paste it, remove it from its position where it previously was, add a fill, change the fill color to black, and also change the stroke to, remove the stroke altogether because it's just creating one more element to be confused of. Add the font size, add a couple of numbers to the font size. I feel like 18 should be a good place to stop. And change the call to action button into something more enticing, like join in the fun. And now we're going to make sure this is center aligned along with everything else. And now we have a really good place to think about our image slider. So we've almost done with all of these elements. You can adjust the spacing on the top and the bottom as needed, as you'd like. And this line height can also be adjusted as well. It does take some time to get right, but at the end it is so worth it. I'm going to get everything aligned, group it all together just so it stays together for the period of this site. And we're going to take this group, align it perfectly in the center. And the next thing we're going to create is obviously our image slider. Again, this is one of the most fun elements of this site ever because you have this really cool, relaxed feel, and most of the charm of this website, most of the color coordination comes from this exact image slider. So I am super proud of the way it's working right now. All right, so the fonts that the images that we're using. All right, we've got another question coming in. Pyle asks, would you be having a separate live session for creating design systems or style guides from scratch, defining typography and colors? I feel like that's an amazing idea. We could actually do that. We could have a live session for design systems and or style guides in the next week, because now we've switched up the live stream format to do 4 live streams a day, which is completely awesome. On both Saturdays and Sundays, we do live streams at Indian Standard Time, 11 a.m. and then 2 p.m., 5 p.m., 8 p.m. So this is a 3-hour gap between each of these, and it's always nice to come up with fun stuff like that. I feel like we could definitely do it next week, either on Saturday or Sunday. We've got a couple of requests in as well, so this is going to be a fun weekend, the next one. Because yes, style guides are definitely a topic I want to cover more of. Design variables are so overlooked, and I just recently found Figma variables to also hold, like if you look at Figma variables, and I just want to get into it a little bit, they'll now hold colors, numbers, strings and booleans. How could I leave this alone? How could I not say something about it? Like, it's obvious at this point. I will definitely. You're very, very welcome. Alright, the next thing we're going to design is image gallery. We're just going to create a simple rectangle. You don't have to worry if it doesn't look perfect. Nothing really does. We're going to add a border radius and also do 2 other images at the background. So if you're getting confused on the colors, you're just going to give it a different color, right click and send to back, make the size a little bit smaller, place it right here. And one of the sessions, while we're talking about sessions, that I do want to think about a little bit more is UX design as well. I got this request a couple of times, and yet the time was just never right to get into a little bit on UX design, get into a little bit on wireframing, how to get your wireframes in, how to get things straight, especially if you have no idea what you're doing. Alright, so one of the primary things I want to cover here is the drop shadow. If you design with a simple rectangle, so if the only thing you're using here is a rectangle and not the pen tool, one of the added advantages of that is you will get the spread button while making a drop shadow. This is great because it leaves a shadow at the background and you can change the area it covers. So this is super duper nice if you're just looking for an image and have it leave an impact on the other 2 images at the bottom. The images that we're going to be using are from Lumi, which is now my favorite stock image platform ever. And let's just search for hotels and hope it pops up something nice for us to see. And you can keep on scrolling here for a little while and hopefully you'll find something that we like. Again, all of these images are, I believe, AI generated, and it's super duper fun to get to peruse them and figure out unconventional stock images, especially because most of the stuff that's already out there on Unsplash, Pexels, Pixabay is heavily overused by not just UI UX designers but everyone at this point. Hotel, let's do pool. I feel like it was supposed to bring us a couple of images that we would have liked. Can we add a color here? I think we can. There is a specific filter for colors as well, but it works on hex code and that's completely specific. Alright, now we have this image by Steph Mead, which we've been using for our previous layout as well. Always make sure to have your rectangle selected, and with that we have this super duper comfortable image with us. I feel like this adds to the laid backness of the site and the way we're completely okay with all sorts of spacing. It doesn't really matter if the images in the background are perfect as long as you have the image in the center of the screen be the image in the center of the screen. Let's get a couple of images in, and it does take a little while to load, but in the end it is so worth it. Why are you not scrolling? Lumi is actually, if anyone has used Lumi, they will tell you it's actually one of the more convenient tools of UI design that are coming in now. Just super quick to use, super easy to set up. It is quite similar to the Unsplash API and yet has all of the features that were missing. You can search for it through category and have it be especially for UI design. Let's just wait for a moment here to get all of our images in. And I feel like you could add any image over here. You could even insert a random image. It is going to take a moment to load up, but that we can't help. Why are you not loading? Let's close it up, hope it works again. Alright, one of the things that I need to make sure of is the spacing always works. So I feel like this is very broadened out right now and needs to have a level of height that we don't have yet. So we're just going to take this, shift it below, and this provides it some amount of height. So when you look at this complete section, you're having to take a look at the heighted version, which is quite nice. If you do like what we're doing here, subscribe. I come here live every single weekend, and every weekend we create 8 different awesome UI designs on these live streams. Let's do hotels and hope something nice comes up. You could do food and drinks, and that would be super duper close and nice as well. Alright, while this is loading up, we're going to crop this image out now. We're going to go right here and choose to crop our image. And with that, we have our complete image slider done with us. This is super duper simple. The next thing we're going to take care of is our gallery section. This is the most beautiful section, by the way. Comment down B if you think this is the most beautiful section, because I do personally. And it does follow on the principle of, if things get boring for a little while, switch up the background color. That should be a good way to make things interesting every single time. Again, if you guys have any questions related to UI UX design, make sure to leave them in the comments. It is always nice to answer questions coming from fellow designers. We're going to make sure the font size is set to 1280 and everything is perfectly aligned. The color is never going to be black. We don't use black background anymore. It's always a shade of black, especially because it's so overpowering. It's everywhere. You don't want it to be direct black in your eyes. It's going to blind you. The way it's throwing all of its light in your face will blind you. No, I'm kidding. It's not. Alright. We're going to get the title from over here, change the colors, and also change the description. Let's get the title and also paste it back again. We're going to take this and place it outside of the group, especially because we're switching up the colors that we're using here. So this is going to be white now. This is also going to be white now. And we're going to change the font as well. Gallery of Dreams. Let's switch this up to Gallery of, and change this to Dreams. And we're going to make sure this cascades over to the second line. Everything is perfectly aligned. And to change this text up, we're going to use Lorem Ipsum, which is an excellent plugin by DevRiots, and it provides you with the most wonderful description texts ever. You can generate as much text as you want, and then when you're happy with the way something looks, you're just going to stop. The next thing we're going to build out is obviously this gallery. It's super simple, super awesome, but super classy and just fits our tone perfectly. Let's increase this size a little bit, add a rectangle, increase this width, bring the square at the bottom, make sure everything is perfectly aligned together. If it isn't, take your time, align everything perfectly. To align everything in the center, you're going to press this button and that just does it for you. Press shift to select multiple things at once, and make sure there is a border radius no matter what you're doing. Let's copy and paste this image a bunch of times, especially because we need a couple of variations. Very, very simple stuff. We're going to select all of these, make them smaller, add an auto layout because why not? And now we're going to add a couple of images. I know getting images from Lumi takes a little bit of time, but it is what it is. Alright, so we're just going to get a couple of images inside here. Why are we searching for people at work? We should be searching for hospitality. And let's get that loaded in completely. Let's get this image in and a couple of others, and that's just going to make sure our gallery looks complete. Again, this is very, very simple stuff. You don't have to worry if it doesn't look perfect. It doesn't usually. No UI looks perfect in the first go. It does take a couple of iterations to get it right completely, and we're going to give ourselves a couple of images to work with here. We're going to change now the order of the images, especially if it doesn't look good. This is the perfect, amazing thing with auto layout. You can just switch the position of things super duper smoothly and it works pretty easily. Now we're going to get this guy aligned just so that our images leave a little bit of room, especially as they're scrolling. And now we're going to have Yo-Yo says hello, hello, welcome back. We're going to have a button on both of the ends just to scroll around. And this is simple stuff. We've done it before a bunch of times. It's the easiest thing to do. We're going to add a circle on this side, a circle on that side. If you guys have any questions related to UI UX design, make sure to leave them in the live comments and I'd love to answer them, whatever it is. We're going to select both of these by pressing shift and then make sure the width and height is locked together so it scales as a perfect circle, and then change the width to 60. Oops. Let's make sure this guy is perfectly aligned here, and also make sure this circle is perfectly aligned as well. If you guys have any questions related to UI UX design, do not think before leaving them in the comments, because just directly leave them in the comments. I don't know why it came out wrong. Alright, we're going to make sure the border here is gray just so it stands out on its background, and then we're going to get our icons in, which are obviously, you guessed it, from Iconify. And we're going to search for next or previous, and you just have to search for one icon you like, and then the other can obviously be a flipped version of that icon. Let's do this one. And now we're going to change the color to white. Reduce the font size. It's always wise to have a frame outside of your vectors, because if you don't, then your vector will scale along with the parent frame, which is this MacBook Pro frame, and that's going to lead to a ton of disaster that you eventually don't want. This button will remove your image, your icon from auto layout, which is quite important, especially because everything related to this layout is inside of our auto layout. Get rid of the auto layout immediately. Where did our image go? That is the question. Let's put this over here and make sure it's perfectly aligned. Send it to the back and get our vector in here. Make the size super duper small. Oops. Make the size super duper small, and also flip it over because right now it's in the wrong direction. Copy and paste it once again. This is the simplest UI you can make as far as galleries are concerned, and the most classiest ever. Again, if you guys have any questions related to UI UX design, just leave them in the comments. I would love to answer anything software, UI UX design, Figma at all. And now we're going to right click and press on flip horizontal. This is going to make sure the same exact icon is flipped in the opposite direction. Makes our job a whole lot easier. Alright, the next thing we're going to take care of is our buttons, because these are simple little buttons and it's so easy to miss them, and yet at the very end they give you a ton of headache because you don't know how to peruse through all of these different items. Let's now copy and paste it a bunch of times, and 4 buttons is, I feel like, enough just to get this layout perfectly done. We're going to group them together, add an auto layout, make sure to adjust the spacing to a number where we're happy with it. 22 looks fine, and we're going to change the color of the first icon to white. This is it for all of our icons, so we're just going to get this in, perfectly center align it, shift it below by a couple of pixels, and shift our frame up as well. And now we're going to design the most incredible image, the most incredible section of this whole layout, this split screen image features section. Let's make sure this UI is actually inside of our screen. Can we do? Alright, I don't think it's going to happen. Let's just let it go. Alright, the next thing we're going to take care of is creating a simple frame. So if you're going ever for a split screen layout, don't just make half of the screen, always make both of the ends in frame. Even if you don't add a fill, add a stroke, add anything special, you always need to have a frame, otherwise it just disappears. Since the width is technically 1280 pixels for this layout, the height is going to be 640 pixels, which is exactly half of what you're doing right now. If you guys have any questions related to UI UX design, do not hesitate before posting them in the live chat. Let's just put it over here and add a fill just so we know what's going on and where it is. We're going to change this color to, let's do red, and place it outside of our established frame. This frame 7 is half of frame 6 internally, and so it has to be inside of frame 6. And now we're going to make sure everything is perfectly aligned. Shift it down, and that's it. The next thing that we're going to add over here is unforgettable experiences await. This is the simplest thing we can add. Before we do that, let's add a simple image over here. This is going to take a lot of stress off of us to just have it look as similar as possible to what we've already been doing. Let's do hotel pool, and that should give us a couple of images to go off of. This is Lumi, by the way, my recent favorite platform of creating UI UX design stock images. I feel like you could have added any feet images over here because it doesn't really change the ultimate aesthetic. You can have any image you want. I've just added the quickest one I could find, but there are a couple of variations of this to sort of choose from if you want to go and browse Lumi yourself. And now we're going to change the text to black because obviously the color needs to be black. And also we're going to change this text to, let's change the text to say unforgettable experiences await. My Figma closed. What can you do? Make sure to like the video if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and also press on the bell icon just in case whenever we come live you get a notification. Unforgettable experiences await. Unforgettable experiences await. Done. And we're going to reduce the font size by a whole lot, especially in a layout like this. You need to make sure your font size is always on point. I have no idea why this frame has a couple of pixels above itself. Alright, now that has fixed that. Now that we fixed that, we're going to adjust this, reduce the font size. You have to surprisingly bring the font size down over here because you want everything to be perfectly aligned and to fit in the space that we've been given. And I feel like that sometimes does require us to reduce the font size by a whole lot. And now we're going to make sure it's perfectly aligned. Align this to the center of the frame that we have over here. And if you don't yet have a frame for this section too, I would recommend creating it. Done. And now we can ultimately click on this button and it's going to make sure everything is perfectly aligned together. And we're also going to get these buttons which automatically give you features to go off of. Let's do a couple of features, and that's just going to make our life a whole lot easier. If you guys have any questions related to UI UX design, do not think before leaving them in the comments because I'd be happy to answer them. And let's now switch the background color up a little bit just so we know that this is a different feature. Make sure to add a border radius in the exact same aesthetic as the border radius of the main call to action button because these border radiuses are sort of got to be similar. And you know what, we're going to make sure the roundedness appear. The visible roundedness is almost the same, especially because you can't copy the same number if the sizes of the rectangles in question are different. So you don't have to worry about the exact same number most of the times, but just make sure it looks on the same level of roundedness. One element shouldn't be a pill, the other shouldn't be a square. We're going to make the roundedness a little bit easier on the eyes. Have a couple other elements go on here. You know what, let's complete this card first and have it say a couple of things. What should we have it read? A night to remember. If you guys have any requests to put on over here, just leave it down in the chat. Alright, now we're going to reduce the font size and change the font family to Veera Sans. Veera Sans is a surprisingly good option if you're working with Notable, because, and the reason they work out is so simple. Notable is a wide font, Veera Sans is a thin font. You add them together, you actually get a really nice looking UI. Alright, we're going to increase the font size on in here and make sure the text case is set to capitalize for uppercase. We're going to click this right here and also add a description. Copy and paste this, and of course I'm going to use lorem ipsum to generate most of my description. I'm just going to use auto fill of lorem ipsum by DeVries to make everything fit this section perfectly. And also I might want to reduce the font size a little bit just so we have hierarchy in the system. Let's auto generate some text, and that should be enough for us. Let's reduce the grayness or opacity over here according to whatever looks nice. It doesn't actually matter, and this looks quite good as far as I'm concerned. We can also increase the thickness here to medium, or we can just leave it as it is, because these are options up for experimentation. We're going to press shift and select all of these, group them together, and now this is one single component. We're going to copy and paste this a bunch of times and obviously change our text. Again, I'm just going to make sure the frame has the amount of width we need it to have. Both of these elements have different width, different frames, and then you can accommodate your widths accordingly. Select all of these by pressing on shift and then click on this blue button to make sure the spacing between everything is equal. And we have to make sure highlighting is always on point, so unforgettable is going to be in red. If you guys have any questions related to UI UX design, just leave them in the chat. Let's select everything together, and this looks nice. This actually looks quite good. The next thing we're going to take care of is, you know what, let's add a little bit of spacing here because now it's getting awkward. If you can accommodate spacing, you should have spacing definitely. And also we're going to change the text between all of these. Shift it below, and obviously we're going to change this text. Go to lorem ipsum. It's the simplest thing ever if you want to generate, let's go over here and remove the auto close option, and then you can generate a bunch of things without having to worry about it all go away. Let's now auto generate some text. Nope. Auto generate 2 lines of text. Change the type of lorem ipsum and add a little bit of width. Done. This actually looks quite nice, and we're going to make sure it has a lot of spacing on all corners and has the same amount of spacing. You can press alt and look at the amount of spacing between the title and the description. It has to be 11 pixels for our current layout. Perfect. And this has to be 40. You know what, we could, if you just shifted it to 1 pixel to the right, you could have 41 on all sides, which is awesome news. I'm just going to do that. Press shift to select multiple things at once, and now everything that we're using here is truly aligned together. Super duper happy. Done. The next thing we're going to take care of is obviously what our guests say. This is actually a very pretty section. Comment down below what you think this section what you think about this section, because I personally think it's very, very simplistic, very modern, a true representation of what UI design is, especially in the current times. Alright, I feel like we could reduce the font size on this one because it just looks a little bit crowded on its own. Let's change this to 44 pixels. Say hi in the chat, everyone, because this is a super duper special UI. Let's also go to the frame, go to the top of the frame, select the actual frame bars, and then increase the width for a little while. The next thing we're going to add is what our guests say. We're going to add a frame. And add a fill just so we know what we're working with. Adding a fill of white did not help. Yo-Yo says, great design, looks pretty good. Thank you, that's really, really nice of you. This is actually one of the best UIs we've done in a really, really long time. Again, if you guys have any recommendations of what other things you'd like to see, especially in the future, do leave them in the comments. I'm just going to get rid of the red one here because it just gives us a lot more freedom to work with free text without having to worry about what word is red highlighted in the beginning. What our guests say. Let's change the font size in here to be a little bit bigger. This looks good. Make sure to change the text to what our guests say. Don't worry if it doesn't look perfect in the beginning. It isn't supposed to either. And change the important word to have a highlight color of red. Done. And now we're going to have a little bit more spacing in here and have two other cards. We're just going to these cards are very, very simple at their core. Easiest thing to do. We accidentally closed our Figma file, which is awful. Leave any questions you have, anything related to UI UX design in the comments, and let's continue. Let's add a frame and change the fill of the frame to the same exact shade that we've been using. And I feel like these are so similar. The testimonials in here and the features that we were previously using are so similar that you could have the exact same border radius number going on with it. So we're going to change this to 28 and then change these sections to have a little less width, align everything perfectly in the center. Oops. Make sure everything just fits well together, and also add an image, add their description, and add what they say about our product. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, because every single weekend I make 8 different awesome UI design projects, all of which are available completely for free. Any images that we're using here that you don't already find from Lumi, you can find in our Discord group completely free, just there waiting for you to be downloaded, so you can just really, really quickly get your UI design portfolio started. You know what? I'm just going to get one of these done, and then we can just duplicate and customize whatever we have. Let's go to Lumi, and this is going to give us the image that we're looking for. Let's get one portfolio image in, profile image from the front. This does take a little while to load, but it's almost always fine. Why are you so slow? This is taking a really long time. You know what? We can work on the text in the meantime. Let's just get this text in here, and obviously we have to make sure there is a little bit of spacing at the bottom to accommodate the name and the job description of the person. So we're going to go to Content Reel, which is a free plugin in Figma, just to have names and job descriptions of different people. Let's get, why is there a new onboarding going on? Let's have a random name in here, and then we're going to add a comma and go back to the job descriptions that we have. Let's go right here and search for JOB for job. Hopefully this should give us some what is going on, why are you not searching. We're going to go to job tag. You know what, this is why I hate, this is what I hate about this plugin so much. It just takes away what you already have. Gerald Stewart, medical assistant, done. Always make sure to enable auto width. This makes sure your content has the width it needs to have. And now we're going to add a description in here too. Copy and paste the text. Change the color of the font. You know what, let's get rid of this circle over here. Oops. And position it perfectly. And we're going to make this thicker, obviously. You know what, we shouldn't make this thicker because that just spoils the layout that we're going for. Let's go with 16 for this one. Group them together, add an auto layout, simple things, and make sure the spacing between them isn't present, so they look really close up together. Done. And now we're going to add a description on what they say. I'm just going to copy the text that we've been using and then style it. You can do the styling yourself if you want. Type this out yourself if you need to. Alright, we're going to change the color of the text here to black, and also the description is going to be changed to black as well. If you guys have any questions related to UI UX design, make sure to leave them in the comments, and let's continue. This looks good. We're going to change the color here to black, remove the other description box, and now we're just going to place make sure the spacing here works. And now we're just going to duplicate this once again, and if you haven't already, we're going to change the text that's here as well. So we're just going to go back here, copy the text and change it back in here again. Oops. Let's get a job title in here and change the name as well. Done. We're going to add a comma just because we need to. I would have added a text box with a comma and a space, but you know what, this is fine as well. Alright, the next thing we need to take care of is images. Let's switch this image up, go to Lumi, scroll it up and add an image. Done. And now we have what our guests say. This looks like a really good, well-made section, especially for modern UI design. The next thing we're going to take care of is the reach out to us section. Leave any questions or comments you have related to UI UX design in the chat, because I'm always happy to answer your questions. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to like the video, make sure to subscribe and press the bell icon so you get an update every single time I come here live. Make sure your frames are outside of the frames that are already present, because messing this up could really result in not knowing where your frame went. Alright, we're going to add a color, change this to black. And this is the reason we're doing this is actually pretty simple, and I've said this a bunch of times. If you've already used the same background color for a really long time, which we have right here, the brain becomes bored. It's always nice to switch things up. Make sure to switch out your colors to a different shade. Again, this is an exact font copy of this, except for the fact that the size is increased here a little bit, so we're just now going to get to that. Let's now go to the next section. Reach out to us. Oops. Let's copy and paste this title once again, change the font size and the color, obviously. Change the font size to 72 and change the size to say reach out to us. Reach out to us. Change this to red because we want to highlight something all the time. The next thing we're going to make here is this description. This description is just a copy of one of the descriptions that we've been using in the past, and obviously we've increased the font size of every single thing. But I feel like this could be good as well, so we don't have to disturb it. We'd love to hear from you. Let's change the text to say we'd love. I cannot type, really I cannot, it's just so difficult to type while streaming. Don't worry if your text case isn't perfect. If you want to join, if you want to meet other designers who are on the same level or a different skill level as from yourself, join a community, have some fun related to UI UX design. The best UI design community on the planet is the Discord group that we have with our little UI designers community. You can just join it in the description, and it's the most fun place to be if you're a UI UX designer. Let's now create our form, and this is going to be a very simple form. It looks weird and complicated, but it is actually not. It's actually super duper simple. Alright, so we're going to change this to have auto width, and then we're going to reduce the font size by a little bit. And now this is going to get extremely simple. We're going to change, oops, why do I keep on closing that? Why do I always close it? Let's scroll down. Let's change the font size to 16 and change the text to say your name, your email. Let's build out one of these and then we can think about the others. Your name. Copy and paste this, place it right here, and now we're going to build out this button. This is a common version, this is a variation of the button that we've already made, except they've shifted the text to the left side. I feel like this would be pretty easy to do without ever making our own new different frame. Once you've built out a nice call to action button, it's okay to just customize it, because that's the way you're going to retain most of your styling. Easiest way in the world to maintain consistency. And always make sure the font size is 16 pixels. Change the color here to white. Add a stroke of gray. And I'm just trying things out right now, not entirely sure if it will work, but we have to try. You know what, let's just get rid of the stroke, add a fill. Alright, now we're going to change the text to black. And you know what, let's do gray, because this is a form, and change it to name. No, we have to change it to enter your full name. If your text box looks like this and it is still aligned completely in the center, you're just going to take your form, place it right here in the center, make sure to give it the amount of width you need to give it. And now we're going to take this, get it out of our frame, align it perfectly, get all of these together, group them at once, and change this to email for the second one. Again, if you like what we're doing here, make sure to like the video, make sure to subscribe, and click on the bell icon. Let's now take this group and duplicate it once again and make the section for our messages. This is going to be a little bit longer than the others that we've been using thus far. It's so easy to mess up on this styling. Just make sure to be careful with that. The spacing between this and this has to be 16 pixels, so we're going to shift it down to 16 and then select all of these groups together. Make sure to add an equal amount of spacing between them, and when we have this covered, we're going to go over here, increase the size just so there is accommodative space for all of these together. And I feel like we need to have a button here as well to send the message. Obviously, get a button in from the top, and this is the easiest way to do buttons by far. Just take the main call to action button that you make and then change the color, text, whatever it is you need to do to make it work. We're going, oops, why are you not working? Let's copy the button here and then take it back to the bottom to paste it. Done. Oops. Done. And we're going to align it in the center, change the color fill to red. This looks super duper cool. And with that, we have our reach out to us section ready. This looks quite nice, and it's quite modern in terms of the UI design that has been going around. And now we're going to design my personal favorite section of this whole UI. Again, this is a very, very simple section if you break it down. Title, description, and then call to action button. You can just go back to the top and get all of these. You know what? Let's just start with our title, and since this is a little bit smaller than this and equal in size to this, we're going to get an exact copy of this title. No, this title. Copy and paste it, and then change the text over here to say discover the heart of London. Let's say discover the heart of London, and reduce the width of our frame, change the color of heart to red just because we want to highlight it. It seems like a good word to highlight. Basic copywriting. Put it in here, add a description, copy, paste, place it inside of our frame. Make sure to have auto width enabled just so everything perfectly aligns itself. And now we're going to get a description in right here. So we're just going to copy the text that we already have, and pretty much paste it. Don't worry if your styling isn't perfect. I'm just going to match the style that we already have, and then we can start justifying the sizes and scales and everything that we do have. We're going to make sure the font size is gray, especially to reduce the cognitive overload of having all of these really dark and bright sections of our UI. Let's reduce the font size if it makes things easier on the eyes, and we're going to make sure everything is perfectly adjusted. One thing that stumps people all the time is not adjusting line heights to whatever you think would be appropriate, and then it just becomes this whole big fiasco. This button is pill shaped, and I feel like that's very intentional because you want the user to do something different. Anyone who's on your site will have a genuine idea of what the look and feel of the site is, and so they will know that all of these buttons are a little bit rounded. Maybe people don't notice it as severely, but there is that generally established idea. So when you switch out these buttons, and this is very intentional now, this is not going outside of consistency, this is super duper intentional. You now have an element where something different is happening, something special is happening, everyone's focusing there. Get your tickets now is an immediate call to action, and people are actually doing that, which is going to get the button that we've already been using from the top. If you guys have any requests for what we should make next on these streams, do let me know in the live chat. If you guys have any questions, you can leave them there as well. I'm going to add a border radius so that everything is completely rounded off into a pill, and change the text to say get your tickets now. If you have an immediate call to action like this, do not skimp off on the now element of it, because it adds a level of urgency that you wouldn't otherwise get. Why did I make now capital? I feel like I got excited with the immediate urgency concept of the whole thing. Let's just place it over here, and now we're going to give ourselves a grid of 3x2 simple squares with a lot of border radius, because border radius is a must have. We're going to add a border radius of, let's do 27. Copy paste this a bunch of times and then do it again. Let's do 15 because having an equal amount of spacing in grids like these helps you so much. You don't even know, and it does. Let's just place this right here. All right, let's see. Let's just get this done. If it looks too big, which honestly it does, we're going to reduce the sizing here just so we can accommodate more. Let's get all of these images a little bit bigger, and now we can start to use Lumi to incorporate these images inside. Let's go to Lumi, just type LUMMI, and now we're going to search for all of these different images. Let's do luxury because that's the single most powerful word if you want to get a bunch of these images looking alike. And let's get a couple of things in. You want to make sure for all of these images that you don't use images like this or images like this, because when your image already is very, very small, you want fewer elements, as few as possible, because if you have a lot of elements, it just looks busy and weird. You don't want busy and weird. You want easy on the eyes. I don't even know why I'm adding so many ship images to London. Maybe it's the themes, but other than that, I can't really say. Again, we're going to do a bunch of these, and hopefully and I'm going to demonstrate over here. If you add something that's extremely busy, if an image is extremely busy and you don't make it big enough, it's just going to look messy and weird. So if you compare this image and this image just looks like a weird blob, and this image actually looks much better in comparison just because it has fewer elements. The key here is obviously fewer elements, and I feel like this image was also in our previous layout. Here it is. Let's make sure all of these are actually set in an auto layout, because if they're not, that's going to give me anxiety. Check this out. It's so easy to like adjust these things physically inside of auto layout that you just end up doing it. Oops. Let's keep on scrolling, get ourselves a couple of nice images. Anything that's small and anything that's particularly visible, you need to add in all of these. And let's just get every single image inside, and then we can continue on. Again, if you guys like what we're doing here, I come here live every single weekend and we make 8 awesome, unbelievable portfolio projects for your next UI UX design project. And just subscribe and leave a comment. Let's also change the text in here. If you do subscribe, or if you already have, make sure to click on the bell icon, because sometimes you don't know when I'm coming live. Even I don't know either, and so you'll get a notification as soon as that happens. Let's get rid of Lumi now. Oops. This looks fine too. Let's now get rid of Lumi, and I feel like this is a very, very bright UI in itself. You can find these exact images on the Discord group, so make sure to join the Discord group. And now we're going to add our footer. So this is truly one of the most modern elements that we've incorporated here, and now we're going to work on our footer. Make sure the total height isn't somehow very, very much extremely bigger than what we already have. So we're just going to group all of this together just so it's easier to work with, and then add a frame for this section, which I surprisingly didn't do before. Where did my frame go? Oops. I feel like these frames are just getting lost now. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is horrible. This is always, these frames are always getting lost, and then it becomes my headache to deal with it. Where is my group? Why are you not working? Just please work. Let's get the group in. Let's where did the group go? This is what's weird. This group is inside here, and it just needs to be inside this frame, but for some reason it's not. All right, perfectly aligned together. Look at that, super duper nice. We're going to now create one last frame. This is going to be our footer. always, where did the footer go? This is what I'm talking about. See, frames are just getting lost inside the frames. Make sure it doesn't happen to you. Super crazy. You can lose a frame this easily, especially in the new Figma layout. Alright, now we're going to create our footer, which is super duper awesome. The first thing you need to do when you're creating a footer like this is get your logo from the top, get it immediately, get it down in the footer. Let me know what you guys think of this UI, because it's a new and modern take, and I would like to know what other people think as well. Let's add this in here and maybe increase the font size by a little bit. Let's do 24. If you guys have any questions related to UI UX design, do not forget to leave them in here. And then we're going to add a bunch of links. These links are actually very similar to the links at the top, and then we've increased the font size a little bit, so I don't want to mess with that hierarchy. We're going to go to the top and get our frame 1 selected, copied, and then we're going down to the bottom, paste it right here, increase the individual font size. If you want to change the individual font size for something like a frame, you just have to change the frame to a group and then change the font size for each individual item. Groups give you so much more control over each individual element. We're going to add an auto layout, and then that's going to give us a lot of space in between everything. Let's do 55. 55 should be a nice number. Done. And then we're going to create one other frame to say contact us. Alright, and now this is our frame for all of the links that we're doing. Let's get rid of the group that is holding this frame, because now it has become completely irrelevant. Let's also make sure the spacing at the bottom of the footer is right. Actually, we have to put this underneath the footer, and I feel like this looks quite nice. You can adjust the internal spacing to whatever you want, and obviously increase the size of this guy as well. Let me know what you guys think of this UI, because this is a modern take on what we've already built out so many times. Alright, next thing we're going to design is obviously our section divider. We're going to go to the newsletter at the very end, because you have to think a little bit in terms of the space that's already left for that to happen. Let's go to our pen tool, create one simple single line. Let me know if there's any concept or thing in UI design you guys struggle with specifically, and I'd be happy to get out here with a couple of videos on that. Let's change the text at the bottom to say privacy, terms, cookies, and I feel like this is very, very similar to the title that we've built out. We're just going to go inside here and copy our frame 1. This is the first frame that we built out at the very, very top, and it's an exact replica of what your privacy, terms, and cookies would look like. Let's go in here, zoom in. Let's change this to privacy policy, cookies, and terms of service. If you guys haven't already checked it out yet, I come here live every single Saturday and Sunday, and there are 4 different UIs that I talk about every single day. If you haven't yet checked out the other things that we're building out today, go check them out now. They are in the live section of our channel. We're just going to now design our last copyright notice. So we're just going to get this out of the frame and change this to say copyright. Let's do copyright, and let's get this copied from here, paste it exactly over here. Copyright the Crimson what was it? The Crimson Haven. If you guys want to check out 4 other awesome UI designs that I'm building out today, do make sure to check out the live stream section of this channel, because today we're building out 4 unbelievably awesome UI designs, especially the last one. It's my personal favorite, and it is the perfect portfolio project for your UI UX design portfolio, no matter what level you're at. Make sure everything is perfectly aligned, and now we are going to the goal here is to make sure everything is perfectly spaced out. So we need to have one more pixel of spacing before everything is perfectly aligned, which it is now. And now we're going to design our final favorite, join our community section. So let's get this text from underneath there, get it out the frame, and let it say join our community. Speaking of communities and joining them, if you want to join the best UI UX design community on the planet, it is linked in the live chat. The UI UX design community at DevFast is the best one I've ever seen. Join us there, and all of these images, everything that we do in here is shared there as well. You can find a lot of free resources, awesome stuff, especially if you're just starting out in UI UX design. We're going to change the stroke here and remove the border radius because this needs to be edgy on purpose. We're going to change this to say your email address, your email address, not your email address, your email address. Why do I keep on misspelling things? This is horrible. All right, we're going to increase the width in here a little bit and then change the text to say subscribe now. Oops, let's just get this in here, copy and paste this guy, and then subscribe now. Why are you not typing out? Speaking of subscribing, and now subscribe to this channel now, and if you haven't clicked on the bell icon yet, do it, because you'll get all of the updates on when I'm coming live, because I come here live every single Saturday and Sunday to do like 8 different UI designs, and also I come here live randomly sometimes as well. And then the last thing that we're going to add is, oops, why do I keep on closing it? Why? This is infuriating. Quite honestly, it is. By subscribing, you agree to our privacy policy, which I hate as a sentence, but I'm just going to type it out in the interest of the UI which we're making. Check this out, you guys. This is actually quite amazing. What do you think of this? Now everyone who's here has to let me know. We're going to copy this and reduce the font size, obviously, because this is a notice. And make sure everything is aligned according to our notice. Make sure the title is also aligned according to join our community, and then all of these align here too. By subscribing, seriously, you guys, subscribe if you haven't yet. We are so close to completing 500, and that would be amazing, especially if it happens today. If I complete 500 subscribers today, there is a special prize for every viewer watching. A special gift from my end to yours. You agree to our privacy policy. Let's give this channel a nice round number of 500. I want to do it today. Let's see if it happens today, because we have not only this but also 3 other awesome live streams scheduled for today. So hopefully it can happen if you make it happen. Seriously, subscribe. And we're going to reduce the font size because it obviously needs to be smaller than this. It is a notice at the end of the day. We're going to shift this above by a couple of pixels. You can adjust the sizing if you want to, but other than that, check this out, you guys. We are done with the most incredible web app, website, awesome UI design ever. Make sure the prototype settings are set to MacBook Air, which is the frame that we were building out. And also I'm going to share with you the prototype link for this UI. I'm going to remove all of these just so that we don't have any confusion anymore, and let Figma load it up. And then I'm going to share this UI with you. Check this out. This actually looks incredible. You would post something like this to actual production. This is awesome. Let's put it inside, and then you can just check this out yourself. Check it out. It's super duper amazing. And everyone who checks it out will be visible here. All right, let's now talk about what this UI looks like, what we learned today. We learned monochromatic color schemes where you only have one color to work with other than black and white, and we just mastered it completely. We used an unconventional typography combination using Notable and Veera Sans. We learned that having a very thick font like Notable and a thin font like Veera Sans results in something that looks super duper amazing. We have this super duper awesome, super duper cool layout with us and the gallery of our dreams. And then this split screen section, which you can customize the scrollability of, what our guest says, my personal favorite section, and then there's the reach out to us section. As soon as things got boring, we made them interesting by changing the background color, reversing the color scheme. This is one of the primary things we do, especially if the color scheme is monochromatic. And then this is still my personal favorite, and I say this for so many things, but this remains to be my favorite as well. The most modern footer ever, the most nicest get your tickets now section ever. We discussed why it's nice to have buttons of more than one border opacity, so you can have a button that looks like a pill and one that looks like a border radius which is rounded off. And we also have the subscribe now edgy button. So all of these play their different purposes inside of us, and it's super duper fun. We also have Biplab watching this UI live. Hello Biplab, welcome. And so this has been the UI that we've made. I have 3 other unbelievably exciting, awesome, perfect portfolio projects ready to go today at 2 p.m. Indian Standard Time, 5 p.m. Indian Standard Time, and 8 p.m. Indian Standard Time, which is 2:30 p.m. GMT, wherever you are. So I will see you next time. Make sure to subscribe, because I would really love to complete the nice round goal of 500 on this channel, especially today. I will see you really, really soon. Keep designing, make a portfolio project, have some fun. Goodbye.